So today I'm joined by Bernth and Charles, who are touring Australia this October, November, as a part of their Escape the Internet tour. For those that don't or aren't completely familiar with Charles and Bernth, and I don't know how you can't be with as we delve into their careers and how they came to be known globally. Um, they're out doing a tour, which is escaping the internet, basically. If I can, guys, please just tell me a little bit about this tour and how it all started.
Yeah, I mean the origins go quite a way back at this point, where I guess it all started when Bernth made a video where he pitched his guitar down to bass register with an effects pedal. And when he did that, a lot of people left comments under the video saying like, "Oh, you've got to challenge Charles to a battle or do a collab." I don't know if it was a collab or a battle that they suggested, but Bernth decided it was a battle. And so one day I got on YouTube and I saw this video that said my problem with Charles Berthoud or something like that, and it was from Bernth. And I was wondering what on earth's going on. And I clicked on it and I found out that there was some drama happening. And he was very politely challenging me to a battle. So we did that and people enjoyed it. And then we did some more collabs after that. But we didn't meet in real life for maybe 2 years. And then we finally met in real life on Reunion Island, which, if you don't know, is a little French island next to Madagascar, which is probably the most random place we could possibly meet for the first time. Um, and we played some shows there, which went really great. Um, and we even shot a music video in a volcano, which was a pretty interesting experience. Um, and then we decided we've got to make a full tour out of this, and we called it Escape the Internet because most people knew us from online, and this was kind of our first big tour out in the real world. Um, and that's basically the Escape the Internet tour. We just did one in Europe, but we're hoping to just keep doing them across the world. Next up is China, Korea, and Australia. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
That's amazing, and I mean the press for the show says together in constant conversation and instruction. How does that all work in a live situation, Bert?
Yeah, that's I think the first response we got from most people when we announced the tour, like, is it a workshop? Is it a clinic? Is it a concert? Because it's not like your traditional band that goes on tour. It's basically online creators collaborating with each other. So we decided to split it into two parts because we both have a lot of people watching our videos that aren't necessarily musicians, that don't want to hear us talking for 3 hours about advanced music theory and all of that. So the main thing of the tour is the concert that's happening, where we will play our songs and battle each other and do some fun skits as well that people know on the YouTube or from our YouTube channels. But before the show, for everyone who is actually guitar player or bass player, there's also the chance to get a VIP ticket and to be part of a workshop, so to say. So a lot of people are a bit frustrated that they can't really ask us any questions. They can leave a comment, of course, but sometimes we get a lot of them. So it's not possible to answer all of them anymore. So with those smaller groups before the shows, we can actually answer personal questions about, could be anything from technique on the instrument to theory, or also to YouTube or social media, like how to actually grow a channel and how all of that stuff works. So for anyone that wants to dive a little bit deeper, either into the instruments, the technique, the theory, or the online stuff, there's the chance to grab a VIP ticket. And it's been great to hang out with the crowds in Europe so far. This was the first time we actually tried that. And we usually had like 20, 30 people. So it's a smaller group. Everyone gets their questions answered. And for the shows, we could sell out a lot of the venues in Europe with up to, I think, 700 or 800 people. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what happens in Australia because the questions are always very different. What was your favorite question so far, Charles?
How many strings does your bass have?
That's good.
And the answer is?
Usually it's 4, but
Yeah.
sometimes I play the 6. Yeah.
Fantastic. So 2025 is the first time the two of you have gone out on tour together. There is a recording on Spotify of one of the shows. That'll give fans obviously a taste of what you guys do live. As far as, traveling the world, have either of you been to Australia, or what do you know about Australia?
I visited quite a long time ago, maybe at least 10 years ago, just for holiday. I've never played there, but we just went to Brisbane and Sydney. I tried a bit of surfing. It didn't go very well. So then I went back to boogie boarding. Um, I don't know too much about Australia besides the little bits that I've seen. I remember at one point I found what I thought was a really big spider, and I showed it to someone who's Australian, and they said it's just a very normal sized spider. So it kind of burst my bubble. Um, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to coming back. I've got a couple of friends in Australia actually who I hope will come to the shows, and it'll be really nice to see them. And it seems like a very nice place.
Yeah, for me, it's the very first time. So I'm even more excited to explore because we have, I think, a little bit of time, hopefully. Sometimes a bit difficult to actually see some stuff when you're on tour because you're busy all day. But I think since it's the end of the tour, we might have either a day before or after to see some stuff. The only connection I have to Australia is that I'm from Austria originally, and it sounds very similar. So a lot of people think I'm from Australia, but yeah, pretty far away.
Yeah, I was just about to touch on that. So you're originally from Austria. You moved to LA in February. How has that transition been for you, and what have you been up to since moving?
Yeah, thanks. It's been great so far. The move was the most stressful period of my life so far because it happened pretty much at the same time as our European tour. So I had to basically get rid of all of my stuff, and because we didn't have an apartment anymore, so I just stepped into the tour bus and lived in the bus without an actual address for a month, and then flew straight to Los Angeles. And it went really quick when it comes to setting up camp here because most of my audience is actually from the US and like 0.6 or 7% are from Austria, where I was living. So it didn't make much sense for me anymore to be there. And I already did contribute to the soundtrack for a Netflix series called Cobra Kai and made a video for that. Tomorrow, I'm at a podcast with Chris Garza, who's the guitar player of Suicide Silence. And I already have my my management here and a lot of appointments, and it suddenly for me feels a bit like living in the real world, so to say, because I did play for quite a successful act in Austria that was only known in Austria, but right now I feel like there's something different happening every day and collaborations and fun stuff. So it's been pretty great so far. Aside from the fires, of course, I think there's another one
Absolutely.
happening right now. But what can you do?
Well, that's it, And Charles, I mean, you're originally from London. You moved to Boston in 2011 to study at the Berklee College of Music, where you received highest honors. Has the decision to stay in America, was that an obvious one, and what was the reasoning behind that?
It was kind of a natural transition because I moved away from England when I was 19. And so I hadn't really made too many musical connections at that point. I had my friends who I was in a band with in school and stuff, but that was never really like a big professional band or anything. So by the time I was done with Berklee, 90% of my musical connections were in the US. And So it didn't really make much sense from a career standpoint to just go back to England and kind of start building my connections almost from scratch again. Um, I also just really like Boston as a city. It's a very nice place. It's a nice town that's got quite a lot going on, but it's not as crazy as somewhere like New York. New York stresses me out, and I don't know if I'd want to actually live there. Um, and then 7 years ago, I met my wife here, and her family's very close by. So all of these things kind of combined together just made staying here make a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, who were the very first inspirations for you both when you first started playing instruments, and at what age were you when you both started playing?
So for me, I think I was 13 or 14 years old, so like not 4 or 5 years, like some people think. And it was Metallica. It was the first, like the 80s work was the first time that I could actually hear the guitar parts and recognize that they're very important for the songs. I really wanted to learn riffs like Battery, for example. And then suddenly paid more attention to the guitar solos in those songs once I could play some basic riffs. And that was my introduction to lead guitar. And as soon as you go into that territory, you kind of go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. So I got into more virtuosic players and eventually started studying music at the Vienna Music Institute for 4 years. But I think, like for pretty much all rock and metal guitar players, it was Metallica for me that made me pick up an instrument.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually quite similar for me. Although I did start with piano when I was 7, but that was mostly just because my parents thought it would be a good idea. There's not that many 7-year-olds that decide they want to play classical piano on their own. But then when I was about 12, I also stumbled across Metallica. And for me, it was kind of the opposite, though, where it was the solo in one that really hooked me. And I had this like big moment of inspiration and realized that I wanted to play rock and metal. But I had friends who played guitar and drums, but no one played bass. So I decided I'd be different and play bass. And and then I just kept going from there.
Absolutely. It's it's great to understand, the heritage and the influence of a band like Metallica. I mean, for me personally, I think Ride the Lightning is possibly one of the greatest metal records ever. It's that bridge from the punkiness that they had into really finding themselves. And, I think some of Cliff Burton's finest performances lay on that record.
Yeah.
And to see how you guys have taken, I guess, what you started your journey doing. I mean, Charles, I guess you look at the way that you approach playing is when you mention piano, is that you do in the way that you play. I've noticed that you do tend to, adapt a lot of piano sensibilities or theory to the way that you play many of the times. Was that something that you intentionally set out to do or to challenge yourself with?
Not really. It was more like I got very inspired by Victor Wooten, especially he has a version of Amazing Grace and he has an arrangement of Overjoyed. Um, and those, especially Overjoyed, he uses a lot of tapping, and I just really love the way it sounds. And I sort of experimented with it and picked it up fairly quickly, I think because I had the piano background. And I kind of thought I didn't realize I was picking it up more quickly than most people probably would, because most bassists don't have the piano experience. And so I was able to learn these things, I think, relatively quickly. And that just really encouraged me to pursue this self-accompanying style that is two-handed tapping. And so, no, it wasn't really like a pre-planned thing, but I just loved the sound of it when Victor Wooten was doing it. I tried it, and kind of picked it up quickly and decided to just go with it and see how far I could take it.
Absolutely. And Bernth, for you, I mean, as guitar players stand, I mean, obviously, Kirk Hammett and Hetfield were very important in those earlier days. Was there a particular artist that motivated or challenged you to go and create your own technique and build upon what was already out there?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did start with those guys, and when I got more into lead guitar, the kind of phase I remember the most was around 2007 and 8, where YouTube kind of started to take off a little bit, and it was less about players like it is right now, where Charles or me, we have our channels and we post our stuff. It was more like channels like Guitar World for the magazine that invited guitar players in bands, and they would show some crazy licks. I loved watching that. There was a series called Betcha Can't Play This, and it was just about inviting the craziest guitar players, and they show their one kind of hardest trick or lick. And I loved watching that and just trying to figure out how they do this. And later, when I was studying music, I had a bit of a burnout at the Vienna Music Institute because I felt like I was only playing guitar anymore, but I wasn't really hearing anything that inspired me because I kind of felt like I heard so much stuff already. I worked on so much stuff, and I was really looking for inspiration because I was only kind of listening to metal and I couldn't properly get into jazz, although I was studying it. And at that point, I discovered Guthrie Govan for myself, who is every guitar player's favorite guitar player. And that was pretty life-changing because he's one of those people who's um, who doesn't sound like he's playing like when you listen to the first Aristocrats record, which is probably my favorite one, my personal favorite one. It doesn't sound like he's trying to sound as outside as possible or as complicated as possible. It just sounds very fun and extremely refreshing to listen to because you're not used to that kind of phrasing when you come from rock and metal. So that was what inspired me the most around that time, where I felt like I worked on all the stuff. I kind of heard everything. I can't get out of my comfort zone. That's when I heard something that was very fresh and new for me, but it also wasn't like this more traditional kind of jazz that I was quote unquote forced to study, where I never really got into it that much. It still had a rock kind of vibe, but it was very different from what the typical metal guitar players do.
Absolutely. And when you talk about things like YouTube and how important they are, obviously they've been crucial in both of your careers to date. I mean, the stats are absolutely staggering. I mean, between the two of you, you've released, 1,300 videos. But the truly staggering thing is that you guys collectively, have over 700 million views. That is mind blowing. What do you think, the appeal of what you guys have been doing is, and how do you think that reach and that growth has gone, and how far do you think you have inspired people? I mean, obviously you guys must have some wonderful stories about people that have watched and commented and sort of, thrown back what they've taken from your knowledge and abilities.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, I didn't really have much success on YouTube until I started figuring out how the platform works, basically. I started posting in 2012, and for about 7 years, I was hardly getting any views. I think I went from 0 to 5,000 subscribers in the first 7 years. And it's mostly because I think I was putting out pretty good music. I think my compositions were good, but I didn't know how to hook people. I didn't know how to convince people that my video was worth watching. So when they open up YouTube and they see a thumbnail that's just Charles Berthoud plays Transcendence, and the thumbnail is just like me holding a bass, they have no clue who I am. There's nothing about this thumbnail that makes them think, oh, that's interesting. For all they know, it's just some random guy playing bass. They have no idea if it's going to be good or not. And it sounds kind of harsh, but that's kind of the way you have to think about it. Because why would they click on my video? It's just some person who's playing bass. That happens all the time. So I had to figure out ways to get people to watch my videos, and it all became clearer to me once I did this collab with Davey504, who's a subscriber who YouTuber who had 4 million subscribers at that point, and every video he was putting out got like 1 million views. And I kind of analyzed, okay, what's the difference between my videos and videos of people who have tons and tons of subscribers and views? And I realized that they put loads of effort into their thumbnails, their titles. They think about hooks that will get people to watch the video, like you're playing a bass that has 24 strings or whatever. These are the types of things that you have to think about when you're putting stuff out on the internet, for better or worse. And once I started thinking with that mindset, that's when I found that I could reach a lot more people. But I also do want to emphasize that even with all of these kind of tricks and like psychological knowledge, I always made sure that I was putting out the best music that I can. So I wasn't just getting some weird bass, slapping a few random notes, and then putting that out and be like, oh, look at this crazy bass that I'm playing. I was really trying to make sure, okay, I'm doing something weird that will hook you, but hopefully you'll actually enjoy the music that I create using this gimmick or whatever it is. And I think that's what really kept people coming back to my channel. I think they probably would have stopped coming back if they were just expecting me to do something weird or play some weird instrument and then the actual music isn't any good.
And for you, Bernth?
It's very similar. And I also started around 2010 or 11 or 12. I don't even remember, and just uploaded 1 or 2 videos, and then nobody watched them. And I felt like, okay, this is impossible. I feel like that's the process for most people. They just make a channel, put a lot of effort in a video. They have no idea what they're doing. Nobody watches it, and then they're like, okay, this doesn't work. And I had multiple steps along the way, like 3 years passed, and I was like, I kind of really want this. So I did another video and it didn't go well. And then 4 years passed and I did another video. So I always kind of, I had the mentality of I try something once, and if it doesn't work, it's not meant to be, which is the worst possible attitude to have towards anything. I'm happy that I didn't have that towards playing guitar, because I was playing and practicing all this time. So at one point, I just decided I constantly keep thinking about it. So I clearly want this. So what about not just making 1 or 2 videos, but trying to upload every single week and to see where that goes? And in my case, I was hitting the algorithm pretty well around 5 or 6 years ago, when I started getting more serious about all this, because I was talking a lot about my guitar technique. Because I did study guitar and I practiced quite a lot, but nobody ever told me about the best way of holding a pick or how the fretting and fingers should actually move. Because the education that I got at the Vienna Music Institute was much more about crazy jazz theory and much less about actually how to play the guitar very well. So I went through kind of a self-transformation journey where I was showing people exercises that I worked on in order to correct bad habits in my own playing. And then I started to make one of those videos every week, but then also a performance video where I actually played. And often those did much better, because I got very deep into technique, and not everyone, not even all the guitar players are that interested in that stuff. And with the music, I felt like, similar to what Charles was saying, if you had kind of a fun idea around it, then it's also interesting for people who are not that deep into music and who don't even play an instrument. And that's where my channel changed quite a lot a couple of years ago. And I only focus on music content now, and have a lot of people that come up to the shows and say, I'm not even a guitar player and I'm here because I just like the music on Spotify. And it allowed me to crack the #1 spot in the US iTunes charts like 2 years ago with one of my songs, because in the instrumental sector, because the video went viral and reached millions and millions of people. And I was just playing the song, and people ended up wanting to listen to that song on streaming platforms. And that's the story so far, I guess. Now there's a kind of a phase where the algorithm is changing again, and the shorter videos don't work that well because YouTube wants you to put out a short, like a YouTube short, and not post a short video as a long video, if that makes sense, like as a normal video. So now we're kind of figuring out how to bring the music back, because we don't really always just want to talk for 8 to 10 minutes about something. We want to play our instruments. So it's an ongoing thing. You never really figure out the platform where you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes stuff works where you think this is not exactly my best video. Other times you put weeks into a video and people are not that interested in it. So I feel like that's also important for people to know who are maybe on this journey right now and just starting out, that even if you have millions of subscribers and 700 million views or whatever, it's still a huge experiment and it changes all the time. The most important thing is just being consistent about it and not just putting out 1 or 2 videos and then being like, okay, doesn't work. I don't have 1 million subscribers yet.
Absolutely. You know, just knowing of your journeys and the success that you've had, and the fact that it's enabled you to now go and take your collaborations on the road and to share your knowledge and your passion for your instruments is amazing. And it just shows that anything is possible in this day and age if you dig in and do it with enough heart behind it. When the challenge was first issued between you, and I know we are running out of time, what were your initial reactions to working with each other?
Well, it was great actually, because both of us, we kind of agree that we've had quite a few experiences in the past with musicians where it's hard to get things done. Everything takes a long time. Maybe first rehearsal, people haven't really learned their parts. So then you've got to tell people what their parts are or whatever. So musicians are great, but they're not always the most professional. And so when Bernth and I first worked together, when we first played in Reunion, I realized that Bernth also probably practices like 3 hours per day, and really learns his guitar parts inside out. Because the first time we played together, I think we was basically the same standard as the show, which was a pretty amazing first experience. So everything just clicked very quickly, and it's always very easy working with Bernth, and that's actually one of the most important things for me. It can be frustrating when you work with someone, even if they are a really good musician, if you can never get anything done, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. And for you, Bernth?
Yeah, it's really the same, because when we, as Charles mentioned earlier, when we started working together, it was never like, let's instantly form a band and let's go on tour in half a year. It's been a very kind of organic transition into all that. It was really just, let's make this one video. And then I guess we were both quite happy with the process, because it was done very quickly and it ended up really great. So one thing always just naturally leads into the next when we're doing stuff. Right now we're making the Escape the Internet tour an actual world tour to the best of our abilities, because we did Europe, now it's China, South Korea, Australia. We're already working on the US next year, and a lot of other plans. And that's never like the big idea at the start, because for this tour, it's the first time that I went on a longer tour with Charles, and it was also not planned to do all of the other dates later on. We just did this one tour, and everything we do together is just a positive feeling at the end where like, oh, it was fun. Let's do that again in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I think that's always a good sign. And I've seen it go many other ways as well, where you kind of commit to something and they're like, okay, this is going to be a 1 year plan. You're going to do these shows and then those shows. And then you start the project and you're like, oh, shouldn't have agreed to that. Maybe these people are very, very hard to work with. So it's nice to experience it the other way around, where something just naturally keeps evolving without like a strict or a rigid kind of plan right from the start. That's very exciting for me.
Absolutely. Well, the Escape the Internet tour kicks off in Brisbane on October 31 at the Tivoli Theatre. Melbourne sees you at Northcote Theatre on November 1st, and then the tour wraps up in Sydney at the Metro Theatre on November 2. I'd really like to thank both of you, and there is so much more that we could dive into. I've really just scratched the surface. I'm looking at the notes that I have here, and there is so much I'd like to more that I'd like to delve into with you guys at some stage. But we are out of time. So for those of you that are watching, please get along. If you enjoy what these guys do, go and check out the YouTube channels. Go and check out what they do and check out how they perform together, because they truly are incredible, mind-bending musicians. To say that, you know, they've opened a rabbit hole for me as a non-musician is incredible. You know, really are fantastic people. And I'd like to thank you both, Charles and Bernth, for your time today. And we wish you all success and safe travels out here to Australia.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Not a problem at all, guys. Have an amazing day, and thank you again for your time. We'll see you soon.
Great.
See you soon. Bye-bye.